All right, guys. Lesson 3, distance formula and midpoint formula. Midpoint, MID. All right, so distance formula, midpoint formula is what we're going to focus on in this particular little lesson. All right, so when you're finding the distance between 2 points, we're actually finding the measure of the length of a segment between those 2 points. So this is how it's going to tie into what we did yesterday. So distance between 2 points, and I'm using x1 and y1 and x2 and y2 as my 2 ordered pairs. The formula, hopefully this is not unfamiliar to you. You take your x values and subtract them, square that answer, and then add the difference in the y values squared. That's the distance formula. Subtract the x's. Technically, it does not matter what order you put them in. And then square that difference. Subtract the y's. Again, doesn't matter what order you make. You can't mess it up as long as you're putting x's together and y's together. And then square the answers. And then add those two differences together. Take the square root. We're going to do simplifying square roots as mixed in with this, and then decimal approximations as well. So we're going to do both. So let's look at the first example there of applying this formula. So we're going to we need the ordered pairs for the ends of that line segment. So what's this ordered pair up here in that region? -5, 3, and then this ordered pair is -2, -3. All right, so we're going to use those ordered pairs in our distance formula. So subtract the x values. I'm just going to go -5 minus -2 squared. Subtract the y values. I'm just going to do it in the same order. Technically, it doesn't even matter if you do it in the same order or not. As long as it's x's together and y's together, the squared will take care of it. So when I do that work, I end up with -5 minus -2 would be -5 plus 2, which is -3 squared. And then that would be 6 squared, right? So that'd be 9 plus 36. Oh, hold up. Yeah, 9 plus 36 is 45, right? All right, so that's, can that be simplified any, and how do we simplify a square root to get the exact solution? Take stuff out, that's true. So the way that I do that, it was a factor tree method. You can either divide by squares, which is the way I think Coach Mack does it, or you can do factor tree method, which is the way that I do that. 3 and 3, so that's going to be 3 radical 5. And then we'll get the decimal approximation for that as well. So we want to simplify that square root, and that's our exact solution. And then we want to get the decimal approximation for that as well. So I'm just going to type in square root of 45 to get the decimal approximation, which would be, let's just go one decimal place. Second, and then the x squared button. So second and x squared, and then you type your number in. So one decimal place would be 6.7. So we get decimal approximation and the exact solution there. So I want to do both because you never know which way ACT is going to want it or which way the course is going to want it. And if you're going to do something with that answer afterwards, which we will later on, you want to use the exact solution, not a rounded value. So that 6.7 is a rounded value. So it would create some errors if we use that later on. All right, another way that they could give you the problem is just to give you a couple of ordered pairs that are not on a coordinate plane, which I think is easier than trying to, it's just an easy problem. You plug in the stuff you know. Subtract the x's, -4 minus 3 squared. plus subtract the y's, 1 minus negative 1 squared. Work it out. Negative 7 squared plus 2 squared, 49 plus 4, 53. And does 53 break down any? No. So we don't even have to simplify that one any further. That's as simple as it gets. Just get the decimal approximation for that. 1 decimal place. So it would be what? 7 point what? 3. Make sure you know how to round. That could be an issue sometimes. So distance between 2 points, really simple to do there. I don't see any need to do number 3 there. I think it's the same thing. So it's nothing fancy out of this. All right, so let's go on down to midpoint formula. Midpoint formula is an ordered pair. So when you find the midpoint of a segment, when we're talking about coordinate geometry, then you're finding an ordered pair, and it's the average of the two ordered pairs. So for the x value on the midpoint, it's going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2. The y value, same thing. Super easy. Take the two ordered pairs, take the x values, add them up, divide by 2. Take the y values, add them up, divide by 2. And go from there. So 7 plus 9 over 2. This will be the x midpoint. Will be, that's 16 divided by 2 is 8. All right. And then the y value, be negative 5 plus negative 1, which is negative 3. So the midpoint, and we'll just do MP, is the ordered pair 8, negative 3. It really is that easy. It's nothing too fancy about that. Do the same thing. Let's go ahead and do number 5. It's a slightly different, but not much. It'll be negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. The y value is going to be 4 plus negative 4 divided by 2, which is 0. So the midpoint is negative 2, 0. Notice how I set those up like separate equations. Doing it that way, the reason I do it that way is because of the next thing, the other side of your sheet there, where we're finding missing endpoints. So setting up those equations like I've done here on these problems is how I'm going to set up to do these problems. Okay, so they're telling me that the coordinates of find the coordinates of A if the M negative 1, 2 is the midpoint of a segment AB and and B has these certain coordinates. So they're telling us this is the X value and this is the Y value of the midpoint. Okay, so when we set it up to find those missing endpoints, we got the X and the Y from one of our coordinates. So I'm going to set up for the X value that's missing. I'm going to say negative 1 is equal to X plus 3 over 2. And I'm going to solve that equation, okay, to find the missing X value. So how do I undo that equation? Yeah, I can multiply by 2 and get rid of that, so it's not a big fraction anymore. So that's negative 2 equals X plus 3. And then one more step, subtract 3, negative 5. So the X value of point A is negative 5. And I'm going to set up the same kind of equation for the Y value. So the Y value of the midpoint is 2. And then it's going to be Y plus negative 5 over 2. And then same operations to start off with. We'll multiply by 2. And then I'd add 5. Y equals 9. So point A is at -5, 9. We're finding those missing coordinates using some algebra work to get there. It's setting up, the midpoints. It's not a hard thing. Or if you just want to remember double the coordinate of the midpoint, that can help too. Let's do number 7 real quick and see what we can do there. So the coordinates, find the coordinates of J if K is the midpoint of some segment JL, where L has these coordinates -8, 6. So we know the midpoint. So we're going to set up -5 is equal to x plus -8 over 2. And the other equation is 10 equals y plus 6 over 2. And we're going to solve those two equations. So -10 equals x minus 8. That'd be -2. Be 20 equals y plus 6. So that'd be 14. So point J is at -2, 14. So finding the missing coordinates of that. I usually put my variable first on the numerator. You don't necessarily have to do that. It doesn't matter, honestly, which way you do that for that. So let's look at skip number 8. No sense in doing beating a dead horse there. I think you guys can do that. So let's skip down there to number 9. It says P is the midpoint of segment XY, and XP is 8x minus 2. PY is 12x minus 30. Find the value of x. So a lot of times I like to draw a picture just so I can see what's happening. So I've got this segment XY, and it says P is the midpoint. So I'm going to put P right there in the middle. And I know that this, what kind of marks can I put on XP and PY? What should they be? Because P is the midpoint, they said. Yeah, the congruent, they're congruent to one another. So I can put those little marks there that show me that's happening. So this is one of those notation ideas out of that. And then I know from the description in the problem that says XP is 8x minus 2 and PY is 12x minus 30. And it says find the value of x. So how do I do that? Set them equal to each other. So this is like what we did yesterday. So 8x minus 2 equals 12x minus 30. 4x equal to 32. Or no, equal to 28. And x is equal to 7. And that's all I have to do. Number 10 says G is the midpoint of a segment FH, and they give me the expression for F to G and G to H, and want me to find FH. Again, I think drawing a little diagram can be helpful. Not always necessary, but I think it helps sometimes. Especially if you're getting into more complex problems later on, sometimes drawing just a rough little diagram can make it a little easier to digest or figure out what's going on. So F to G is 14x plus 25, and G to H is 73 minus 2x. And then what do we do with those? Set them equal to what? Each other. And solve. So 16x is equal to, subtract 25 from that, so that'd be, is that 48? to divide, so x would equal 3. Is that the answer we're looking for? Yeah, I got to plug that in. So how could we do this? What are the ways? They're congruent, so we can find one and double it, or plug it into both of them, whichever way you feel most comfortable. I'm going to go to the 73 minus 2x and just do 73 minus 2 times 3, which would be 67, and then I'm going to double that, and that's going to give me FH. 120 plus 14, 134. Remember that? So just trying to get our algebra practice in today. All right, let's look at number 11 there. Using a diagram on the left, if line N bisects QR, find QP. So this is, kind of, just laying right on top of what we did yesterday. So what do we do to solve this problem? Set those two things equal to each other. Find a x. So 3x plus 5 is equal to 5x minus 19. So it'd be 2x is equal to 24. X is 12. And they want QP. So where do I plug that in? Yeah, 3 times 12 plus 5 is equal to QP. So that'd be the 36 plus 5 is 41. So nothing too strenuous today's lesson. That's it for today, guys. Believe it or not. No, you got homework. But you got pretty good time at the collective class today to be able to finish it. Let me turn off the video.